This was wonderful. No need to speed to have fun, the bike swaying back and forth through the corners on a smooth surface with the water ever present on the left. It didn't last long. After a couple of miles, the road turned to gravel, at first a broad, well-manicured road that gradually narrowed into a single-vehicle-width cottage road. The digital map on my phone instructed me to turn off onto what looked like a four-wheeler track heading north, so I stopped to double-check and assess the possibilities. The guys I'd met at Griffith had mentioned riding part of this section, explaining that they hadn't gone too far, as they'd soon encountered a steep, loose uphill section peppered with what they'd described as baby heads. I was hoping that wasn't an accurate description. Perhaps they'd just meant large rocks. I'd better have a look for myself. The first few hundred yards were on sandy, gravelly ground, with a few rocks and grass growing between the two four-wheeler tracks. On a bike with long travel suspension, it would have been nothing. On my bike, I had to dribble along, careful to avoid any of the larger rocks protruding through the ground surface. The Eldorado has a massive, finned sump which hangs down below the frame rails and only gives about 6 inches of ground clearance under ideal conditions. With my weight on the bike and the forks under compression, it's considerably less, so I knew to be careful. I've walloped that sump on rocks a few times, fortunately so far without damage, but I had no desire to deposit the crankcase oil in the middle of the Algonquin forest. As the track gradually rose away from the lowland by the lakeshore, it became increasingly rocky, with patches of dried-out puddle, areas where heavy rain had washed gullies across the path, and sections consisting entirely of cobbles. So far I'd avoided most of the obstacles, and if progress was slow, it was steady. Despite the slow speed running in first, and occasionally second gear, I never have to worry about the air-cooled engine overheating. She always seems happy to idle along, and I'm never bothered by heat rising up off the engine. We hadn't gone more than a mile or two before we were stopped in our tracks. Ahead, the trail rose abruptly up a steep slope dotted with large rocks poking out of the loose gravel. I rode halfway up with the rear tire frequently losing traction before a little voice in my head suggested it would be wise to stop and investigate before trying to go any further. This and all my other motorcycle books are available on Amazon and Audible, in print, digital and audiobook formats. Just search for Nick Adams Motorcycle. Thanks for listening.